first drops of rain fell like someone's whisper in the midnight forest. Light, sparse, and hesitant. But only minutes later, the sky seemed to tear apart. Thunder exploded over the distant hills, making the ground tremble in waves. The wind lashed against the pine canopy, making them scream like the cries of 100 souls. Elias pulled his coat collar tight, bowing his head against the rain, whipping his face. The small flashlight in his hand flickered, its beam lost amid the curtain of white water. He had been walking for nearly 2 hours since leaving the main road, guided only by the vague instructions of the old man at the roadside tea stall. Open quote, "Keep straight past 3 lines of pines until you see the lightning-struck banyan stump, then turn right. At the end of that path, there's a wooden cabin. You can stay there for the night." Close quote. The man's voice echoed in Elias's mind, cold as the forest wind. It wasn't advice, nor warning, but a hollow tone, like someone who had said it too many times to people who never came back. The trail grew narrower. Grass rose to his ankles, pine needles soaked and clumped together. The air carried the sharp scent of wet soil, resin, and something else, pungent, metallic, like old rot. Each time the wind blew, the forest shuddered and groaned, sounding like bones scraping against each other. His flashlight flickered again, once, twice. Elias tapped the handle gently, muttering, open quote, "Don't die now, please." Close quote. The light steadied, and that's when he saw it. A dark mass emerging through the rain, crouched like a waiting beast. A house. At first, Elias thought it was part of the forest, its roof moss-covered, walls mottled gray, ivy strangling the windows. Closer, he saw a shattered window pane, rainwater splashing inside, streaking mud down the wall. The front door hung ajar, creaking in rhythm with the wind. Creak, croak, creak. Elias stopped at the steps. Every instinct urged him to turn back. But the rain was pounding, thunder rolling endlessly, and the chill had sunk deep into his bones. He pushed the door open. The hinges groaned, long strained like someone gasping for breath. Inside, the air was thick and damp. His flashlight swept across warped wooden floors, cobwebs trembling with each gust through the cracks. On the table sat a dust-covered oil lamp, a few moldy notebooks, and a broken chair lying on its side. Everything felt frozen in time. But what made Elias shiver wasn't the decay, it was the silence. A silence so heavy it felt as if it were listening. He whispered softly, just to calm himself. Open quote, "Just for the night. I'll leave when it clears." Close quote. The door shut behind him, thud, as if someone had pushed it closed. Elias stood still, breathing hard, then slowly exhaled and set his backpack near the cold fireplace. He tried to start a fire, but the wood was soaked, so he lit the oil lamp instead. The flame flickered weakly, casting trembling yellow light on the walls. Shadows stretched long and warped, reaching out like arms from the corners. Each flash of lightning from outside revealed the room in full, empty, damp, and somehow wrong. Then he heard it. A soft sound, drip, drop. At first, he thought it was just rain leaking from the roof. But no, it had rhythm, steady, like someone tapping a finger on the wall. He held his breath. The tapping stopped. Elias moved closer, shining his light across the wall, nothing but stains and peeling paint. He crouched, listening, only his heartbeat. Then suddenly, knock. This time, it came from beneath the floorboards. He stumbled back. The ground had just trembled. Open quote, "Just the wind," he whispered, though his voice was shaking. Close quote. He returned to the fireplace, wrapped himself in a thin blanket. The tapping was gone, but the silence grew thicker, heavier. Outside, rain crashed against the cabin, and the wind howled through the cracks like someone sobbing. Elias sat still, trying to lull himself to sleep. He whispered, open quote, "It's just the rain, just the rain," close quote. But then a voice, faint, breathy, close, brushed against the wooden floor. Open quote, "Don't," close quote. Elias's eyes snapped open. The lamp flame trembled, illuminating a wet handprint on the wall, right beside where he sat. Water was still dripping from the fingertips, one drop at a time. He backed away, heart pounding. Thunder crashed. Lightning flashed. For an instant, the whole room was clear. There was no one there. When the darkness returned, the handprint remained. But by morning, when the first light crept through the broken window, Elias saw. The print was gone. In its place, carved deep into the wooden wall, were three crooked words, as if etched by nails. Open quote, "I'm still here," close quote. The next morning, the rain hadn't stopped. The sky was a solid gray, fog covered the broken window frame, and the cold wind crept through every crack in the wall. Elias woke with a sharp ache in his shoulders and neck, probably from sleeping curled up all night in a sitting position. The oil lamp on the table had gone out, leaving behind a heavy smell of smoke in the air. He looked around. The wall where the handprint had been was now smooth, as if nothing had ever happened. But Elias knew he hadn't imagined it. He remembered each drop of water hitting the floor, the chill crawling up his neck, and most vividly, the 3 jagged words carved into the wood. Open quote, "I'm still here." Close quote. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe a hallucination in the dark. That's what he told himself. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that the house was watching him. Elias stepped onto the porch and looked outside. The rain had softened, but the sky remained murky gray. The dirt path was soaked, with no footprints but his own from the night before. In the distance, the pines swayed, their whispering rustle sounding like a weary sigh. He went back inside, rummaged through his backpack, and took out a bottle of water and a folded piece of paper. He had received that note the night before leaving town. No one said who sent it, only that it contained a few handwritten lines in faded blue ink. Open quote, "The house at the end of the Pine Road. Do not ask, do not call, do not leave until the rain stops. Stay completely silent, and if you hear knocking, do not answer." Close quote. Elias had thought it was just some pointless warning, until the knocking actually came last night. Now, the note felt more like a command burned into his mind. He no longer felt like a traveler seeking shelter, but someone chosen to remain. He moved slowly through the cabin, trying to learn who had once lived there. In the back, he found a small room that looked like a bedroom, an old wooden bed, damp blankets covered in mold. On the wall hung a faded photograph of a man in a thick coat holding a hunting rifle. Beside it stood a low cabinet, with words carved into its surface by a knife. Open quote, "Do not forget, the rain is the sign." Close quote. Elias brushed his fingers over the carving, and a cold sting shot down his spine. He tried to recall the voice of the man from the tea stall, but when he did, it sounded distorted, like it didn't belong to the living. By noon, the rain had grown heavy again. The cabin dimmed into a pale gray glow, and Elias sat by the cold fireplace, jotting notes in his journal. Open quote, "Day 1. I'm in the cabin at the edge of the forest. Heard knocking, maybe wind. I'll stay until the rain ends. Only then will I leave." Close quote. Just as he finished writing, he heard a faint buzzing under the floorboards, like static or metal scraping against metal. He jumped up, pressing his ear to the wooden planks. Below, there was a sound, steady, slow, like breathing. Then suddenly, knock. A single, clear tap came from directly beneath his hand. Elias staggered back, his heart pounding wildly. He backed up against the wall, staring at the spot. Then, as if something had heard his fear and wanted to answer, a whisper rose, faint, wet, barely human. Open quote, "Don't leave." Close quote. The voice was hoarse and damp, as though pushed through layers of wood and water. Elias froze, cold sweat breaking across his forehead though the room was icy. He didn't reply. He didn't dare. He just stood there, listening to his own breathing blend with the rain. Then the knocking came again. Slower this time. 3 taps, evenly spaced. And after each knock, he could hear it move. Something crawling beneath the floorboards. Not a rat, heavier, enough to make the dust tremble. He gripped his flashlight tight and aimed it through a gap between the planks. Nothing but darkness. But for a split second, the light caught something glistening, wet, like an eye that blinked, then vanished. Elias recoiled, nearly dropping the flashlight. He stumbled into a corner, sliding down the wall. His hands shook so badly, he had to hold the light between his knees to keep it steady. Outside, thunder cracked. Lightning flared through the shattered window. For an instant, he saw it, the shadow of a hand pressed against the glass, long, thin fingers dripping wet. When the light faded, the shadow was gone. Only the pounding rain remained, harder than before. He couldn't shake the sense that the house knew he was afraid and was enjoying it. All afternoon, Elias didn't sleep. He stared at the door, scribbling notes whenever a sound occurred. Open quote, 14:5, footsteps on the roof. 15:22, someone laughed outside or inside the walls. 7:10, a breath near my ear. No one there. Close quote. By dusk, Elias no longer knew how long he'd been awake. He remembered only one rule: stay silent. Don't answer. Don't call, don't leave. The sounds changed as night fell, less distinct, blending with the rain. Sometimes they sounded like whispers, sometimes like children humming a lullaby. All of it came from beneath the floor. Elias pressed his ear to the wall, trying to separate the noises. Amid the distortion, one voice rose clearer than the rest, a woman's voice, soft but heavy as lead. Open quote, "The gatekeeper must not sleep." Close quote. He stumbled back. Gatekeeper? Who was the gatekeeper? And what were they guarding? He grabbed the note again, scanning every line. But there was nothing about a gatekeeper, except for one line he had never noticed before. Open quote, "When the rain stops, the door will open." Close quote. Elias turned to the front door. It was shut tight, though the wind howled hard enough to make the roof groan. He tried the handle. Nothing. Pulled harder. Still nothing. From outside came a sound. Shh, shh. Something dragging across the wet ground, circling the cabin in slow, deliberate loops. Elias went still. The sound stopped right outside the door. A knock followed. Then 3. Then silence. He stepped back toward the center of the room, heart hammering in his chest. The air grew heavy, thick, and for a moment he felt eyes on him from every corner. The oil lamp flickered once, twice, then went out. Darkness swallowed the cabin, and in that darkness, Elias heard it, a voice no longer whispering, but speaking right beside his ear, low, hoarse, and soaked in the sound of falling rain. Open quote, "Stay silent or I'll stay silent for you." Close quote. Night had fully fallen. The house was swallowed by thick darkness, with only the endless sound of rain beating on the rusted tin roof. Elias sat huddled in the corner, clutching a small flashlight whose beam was fading. The air reeked of mold, lamp smoke, and something else, like rotting animal flesh, seeping into his lungs until he had to hold his breath. He didn't dare speak, didn't dare call out, afraid that any sound might draw it closer. Each second crawled by like hours. Suddenly, from the kitchen came a faint clack. Then click, 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 as if someone were testing the old lock. Elias shone his light toward the sound, but there was only darkness. He held his breath, listening. The noise stopped, replaced by another, a metallic scraping against wood, followed by a low, ragged breath. Then silence. Elias rose slowly. His hands trembled so badly the beam of light quivered like a blade in the dark. He took cautious steps toward the kitchen, careful not to make the floorboards creak. As he neared, he saw the cellar door slightly ajar, just enough for a damp gust of air to slip out, carrying the chill of deep soil. Elias sniffed, uneasy. He crouched, shining the light through the crack. Only a void stared back. No stairs, no movement. Yet he could hear dripping water, and somewhere far below, a slow, heavy thump, steady like a heartbeat. He closed the hatch carefully, trying to steady his breathing. The instant it shut, 3 knocks echoed from beneath. At the same time, footsteps sounded in the living room. Soft, slow, dragging. Elias spun around. It couldn't be a person. No one could have come in. The front door was still locked. He aimed the flashlight toward the sound. On the warped wooden floor lay a long, wet trail stretching from the door to the center of the room. Water dripped steadily, tap, 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 mingling with the rain outside. Elias backed away, gripping the flashlight. The beam trembled across the ceiling, and in that brief flash, he saw a figure, tall, thin, soaked through, standing with its back to him, hair long, hanging forward, hiding its face, hands pale and limp, dripping onto the floor. Elias froze, unable to breathe. He didn't move, only stared. The figure stood still, unmoving, then slowly tilted its head, listening. Even the rain seemed to fade away. Only the pounding of Elias's heart filled the air. The figure tilted again, then suddenly turned to face him. Elias stumbled backward, crashing into the wall. The light revealed its face, shriveled skin, ghastly white, hollow eyes, and a mouth split wide open. Not quite a smile, not quite a scream. The worst part, it had no pupils, just black hollows. Yet Elias knew it was staring straight at him. He gasped, and it stepped forward, wet, heavy steps sticking to the wood. Then another. Elias backed away, tripped over a chair, and fell hard. The flashlight spun across the floor, rolling until it stopped by the window. When Elias looked up, the figure was gone. The room was empty. Only the wet trail remained, glistening fresh, leading straight to where he sat. He grabbed the flashlight with shaking hands, sweeping it around. Nothing. But when he aimed it at the floor, the water was spreading, widening, though nothing dripped anymore. It crept closer until it touched his foot. The freezing shock jolted through his body. He sprang back, retreating into the corner. He sat trembling, afraid to even breathe. Then, from somewhere deep within the walls, a voice spoke. Not its voice, but that of an older man, rough and hollow. Open quote, "The keeper of the door is dead. The door has not been replaced. The rain will not stop until a new one is chosen." Close quote. Elias froze. The words echoed around him, slow, distinct. He looked toward the front door. Water was now seeping through the gap, flowing into the room. Outside, the storm raged louder than ever. He understood then. If the door opened, something would come in. And if he didn't hold it shut, no one else would. Elias dashed to the door, throwing his weight against it. But the wind pushed back with inhuman force, as if 100 hands pressed from the other side. He braced his shoulder, gritting his teeth, straining not to scream. Through the howling wind and rain, he heard laughter, low, distorted, stretching unnaturally. Then a weaker voice, a woman's, whispered through the storm. Open quote, "You have heard, so now you belong here." Close quote. The door rattled violently. The wood groaned, cracking under pressure. Elias pushed harder, heart pounding. Then, crack! Lightning flared, flooding the room with blinding light. For a split second, he saw through the crack, a single black, unblinking eye staring in. He screamed, shoving with all his strength, slamming the door shut. The wind stopped. Silence filled the house. Elias collapsed, gasping for air. He didn't know how long he lay there, only that when he looked up, the flashlight had died and the rain had ceased. Only the faint dripping from the cellar remained, steady as a heartbeat. He turned slowly. The hatch was wide open. From the darkness below came a familiar voice, soft, almost tender. Open quote, "Now it's your turn to keep the door." Close quote. The house had been silent for too long. No wind, no rain, only the steady, dripping sound from the cellar below. Elias stood motionless in the dark, feeling the cold seep deep into his bones. The air was thick with the stench of mold, soil, and rust. So heavy he could barely breathe. The flashlight was completely dead, and only the faint moonlight leaked through the shattered window frame, casting a pale glow on the floor, where the black stain still lingered, not drying, but spreading slowly, like blood soaking into wood. Elias looked toward the open cellar hatch. Cold air drifted upward in waves, carrying with it the rasping, rhythmic sound of breathing, as if someone lay waiting below. He swallowed hard, forcing his voice to stay steady. Open quote, "Who's down there?" Close quote. No answer. Only the drip, drip, and a faint voice, rising like wind from the earth itself. Open quote, "I once asked the same thing." Close quote. Elias stepped back, heart hammering. The voice wasn't angry nor hateful, only weary, as if it had waited too long in the dark. Then it spoke again, slow and cracked. Open quote, "I kept this door for 50 years. The rain is the reminder. When the new one comes, I may finally leave." Close quote. Elias held his breath. Those last words pierced through him. The new one. He understood. He had been chosen. The house was never abandoned. It had simply been waiting for a replacement. He looked around. The words carved into the wall were still there. "I'm still here." But now, below them, scratched in fresher marks, another line had appeared. Open quote, "Keep the door, or the rain will return." Close quote. He sat down, moonlight washing over his pale, trembling face. He didn't know why this was happening to him, only that somehow everything since leaving the main road had been leading here. Elias closed his eyes, trying to remember. What had the old man at the roadside shop said? His voice was raspy even, and there was something familiar about it. Open quote, "Just go straight past 3 rows of pines. There's a wooden house. You can spend the night there." Close quote. He hadn't noticed then how empty the man's gaze was. A gaze without pupils. The realization made Elias's skin crawl. Could it be that man once kept the door, and now he had been replaced? From the cellar, the voice came again, faint as breath. Open quote, "You have heard. Now you must choose." Close quote. Elias trembled. Open quote, "Choose what?" Close quote. Open quote, "Stay or open the door. Stay to keep. Open and vanish as I did." Close quote. A cold gust swept through the room, snuffing out the oil lamp. Darkness swallowed everything. Elias backed up to the wall, eyes fixed on the hatch. A pale, skeletal hand emerged from the opening, long, thin fingers dripping wet, clawing at the floorboards. Then another hand followed. Both gripped the edge, pulling up the same ruined, hollow face he had seen before. But this time, it wasn't filled with hatred. It smiled, a sad, twisted smile. Open quote, "You are who I once was." Close quote. Elias took a step back, but the wall was already against him. No escape. The pale hand reached out toward him. Open quote, "Give me your hand. When you take it, the rain will stop." Close quote. For a moment, the last thunder rolled across the sky, distant and fading. Then the rain truly stopped. No more falling drops, no more wind, only the still, frozen chill in the air. Elias looked toward the window. The sky was clearing, clouds thinning. In the faint moonlight, beads of dew clung to the broken glass like tiny crystals. Everything was utterly still, but the cellar hatch remained open, and the waiting hand did not move. Elias sat down, shaking. Open quote, "If I stay," close quote. Open quote, "You keep the door. Do not open it. Do not leave. When the rain comes, you stand in the center and hold it back." Close quote. Open quote, "For how long?" Close quote. Open quote, "Until someone new arrives." Close quote. The words struck him like a sentence carved in stone. Elias clenched his fists, staring at that dripping hand. He could run. He could open the door and leave. But when his eyes fell on the carved words, "Keep the door, or the rain will return," he knew if he left, it would be set free. He took a deep breath, then reached out. The moment his fingers touched that icy skin, a freezing surge shot through his entire body. Everything went black. No sound, no sight, only the sensation of falling, sinking into a deep, wet void, thick as mud. In that darkness, hundreds of whispers rose together. Open quote, "Welcome, keeper of the door." Close quote. When Elias opened his eyes, morning had come. The house looked the same, but cleaner, drier still. No stains, no smell of damp. The cellar hatch was sealed tight. He stood, walked to the door. Outside, soft daylight filtered through the wet pines. The path back to the village seemed close now. Elias took a few steps forward, then turned back. The house was gone. Only a patch of moss-covered earth remained, and on it lay an old wooden door, half buried in mud. From a distance, someone called out, "Open quote, hey there, looking for shelter? Past those pines, there's an old cabin you can stay in." Close quote. Elias turned sharply. The man from the shop, same face, same hollow smile. But now his eyes were full of life. And Elias, when he looked down at his reflection in a puddle, his eyes had no pupils. A gust of wind passed, carrying the scent of new rain. Then from somewhere far below came 3 faint knocks. Clack, 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 and the rain began to fall again. Early in the morning, thick fog covered the hillside. The rain from last night had just stopped, but the sky was still heavy, as if one strong breath could bring down another storm. A young man, tall, thin, walked along a narrow path carpeted with wet pine needles. On his shoulder was an old backpack, his jacket soaked and his boots caked with mud. His name was Thomas Gray, an amateur photographer searching for abandoned villages around the Yorkshire area. He stopped by a large rock, unfolding a wrinkled paper map. A faded line of text read, "Old Glenwood Path, beware of storms." Thomas gave a faint chuckle and muttered, "Open quote, old warnings must be village superstition." Close quote. Far away, dark clouds began to gather again. Thunder rolled from the base of the mountain, long and deep, like someone breathing inside the forest. Thomas quickened his pace, occasionally glancing through his camera lens. Through the mist, he caught several beautiful shots, leaning pine trees, a winding trail, and in the distance, the faint outline of a wooden house behind a veil of drizzle. He squinted. A house in the woods, exactly what he was looking for. Thomas smiled, excitement warming him just enough to forget the cold. The house stood there, as if waiting for him all along. Its roof was covered in moss, the walls gray, the windows cracked. Under the porch, a broken wooden sign still held a few burnt letters. "Don't op," the rest worn away by rain. Thomas took a few more photos, then stepped up the porch. The door creaked open. Creak? The familiar sound of any abandoned house. But as he entered, the air inside made him stop. There was no smell of mold, no cobwebs. Instead, the room was strangely clean. On the table, a small oil lamp still burned faintly, flickering, trembling, though no one seemed to be there. Thomas bent down to look closer. The oil inside was still warm. Open quote, "Someone must have been here recently," he whispered. Close quote. Suddenly, a drop of water fell, plop, onto his wrist. Thomas looked up. The ceiling was dry, no leaks. He glanced around, no sign of water, except for a damp handprint on the wall, still glistening, as if freshly made. Thomas took a step back, his breath quickening. The lamp flickered, wind whistled through the cracks, and a clack sounded from the floorboards. He looked down. Right in the center of the room, a wooden trapdoor was trembling, as if someone underneath was trying to push it open. He hesitated, but curiosity won. He shone his flashlight through the crack. Only darkness. Then a whisper, faint like the wind sliding through wood. Open quote, don't open, close quote. Thomas jolted back, falling hard. He gasped, heart pounding. Open quote, is someone down there? Close quote. No reply, only the slow drip of water. He stood up, ready to leave, when another voice spoke, deep, rough, but right behind him. Open quote, the door is opening. Don't let it in, close quote. Thomas spun around, no one, only an old mirror hanging on the wall opposite him. He looked into it and saw not his own reflection. In the mirror stood a man without pupils. His coat was drenched, hair matted, lips pale. He mouthed the words, open quote, hold the door, close quote. Thomas screamed, rushing toward the front door. But as his hand touched the handle, he realized it was raining outside again. Rain hammered against the wood so hard the whole door shook. A voice, far away, carried through the storm. Open quote, hold the door or the rain will come in. Close quote. Thomas looked back. The mirror now showed only an empty room. He trembled, then clenched his jaw and slammed the door shut, dragging furniture against it. Outside, the wind howled like hundreds of people crying. Then, from beneath the floor came 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. The oil lamp went out. In the dark, the deep voice returned. Clearer now. Open quote, you hear the rain, that means you've been called. Close quote. Open quote, who are you? Thomas shouted, desperate. Close quote. Open quote, the one who held the door before you. Now I'm free. Close quote. Thomas backed away, horrified. The voice continued, calm and rhythmic, like a curse being recited. Open quote, when the rain stops, you must not leave. If you leave, the rain will bring them back. Close quote. Open quote, bring who back? Close quote. Open quote, those without names. Close quote. The air thickened, pressing against his lungs. He could hear footsteps circling him, slow, dragging, until they stopped right behind. A cold breath brushed the back of his neck. Open quote, hold the door. Close quote. Thomas turned but saw nothing. Only a wet trail stretching across the floor, ending where he stood. A flash of lightning lit up the window. In that instant, Thomas saw a figure outside, hand on the latch, smiling faintly. It was Elias, his clothes soaked, eyes hollow, yet his face calm. Elias nodded slightly. Open quote, I held it. Now it's your turn. Close quote. Thunder cracked. His figure vanished into the rain. The room went pitch black. The wind howled so violently, the door nearly burst open. Thomas threw his body against it, screaming and crying. Open quote. Why me? I just got lost. Close quote. Elias's voice echoed faintly through the house. Open quote. Everyone gets lost. No one comes here without being called. Close quote. The door stopped shaking. Silence. Thomas stood there, shoulders trembling, tears mixing with sweat. After a while, he opened his eyes. The rain had stopped. Outside, a dim light seeped through the gray clouds. But when he looked around, the house had changed. Furniture neatly arranged, floors dry, not a drop of water anywhere. Only the trapdoor was sealed shut, and carved into it were 3 new words, crude but clear. Open quote, I'm still here. Close quote. Thomas stepped back, gasping. He understood. The last keeper had gone. Now it was his turn. A soft breeze drifted through the window, carrying the scent of fresh rain. In the distance, thunder murmured again. Thomas gave a faint broken laugh and whispered, Open quote, all right, I'll hold the door. Close quote. He sat down, leaning against the wall, watching the oil lamp flicker back to life, slowly on its own. The trembling light reflected across his face, and in his eyes, the pupils were fading away. Outside, the rain began to fall again. But this time, no one heard it, because the new keeper had begun his work. Saturday night. The rain still fell, but Thomas could no longer hear it clearly. The sound was now just a faint sigh, echoing somewhere behind the wooden walls. How long had he been sitting in this house? A day, a week, or a lifetime? No one knew. There was no clock, no sunlight, only the oil lamp that never went out and the wind howling around the eaves like a choir of forgotten souls. On the table, Thomas scribbled trembling lines into a leather notebook he had found in an old drawer. Open quote, if anyone reads this, please don't open the door. Even if you hear a voice calling or see a light out there, don't open it. Close quote. He stopped writing, staring at the shaky words. Below, the ink spread, soaked, as if water was dripping from the ceiling. Thomas looked up. 1 drop, 2 drops, then hundreds splashing onto the floor. But there was no rain outside. He stepped into the middle of the room, scanning around. Water seeped from the walls, from the window frames, from the photographs he had taken. Everything blurred, as if dissolving. Open quote, "Elias?" he called, voice hoarse. "Are you still there?" Close quote. A whisper replied, drifting like the wind. Open quote, "I never left." Close quote. Thomas turned. Elias stood in the corner, drenched, smiling faintly. But he no longer looked frightening. He looked tired, like someone who had endured for far too long. Open quote, "Why am I here?" Thomas asked. "Why must I hold the door?" Close quote. Elias didn't answer immediately. He stepped closer, touched the wooden door. His hand passed through it, fading into mist. Open quote, "Because you heard the rain." Close quote. Thomas frowned. Open quote. "What does the rain mean?" Close quote. Elias looked at him, his gaze timeless. Open quote. "In this land, rain is memory. When it falls, the forgotten souls find their way back. Whoever hears the first rain is called to hold the door to keep them from crossing over." Close quote. Thomas trembled. Open quote. "And if I don't hold it?" Close quote. Elias bowed his head, voice lowering. Open quote. "Then they will come in, and you will become one of them." Close quote. Silence. Only the sound of water dripping from the roof remained. Thomas stepped back, fear and pity mingling within him. Open quote. "How long have you been holding it?" Close quote. Elias gave a sad smile. Open quote. "I was once a traveler like you. One stormy night, I sought shelter here. When I heard the first knock, I didn't close the door. They came in." Close quote. Elias looked toward the trapdoor where the words, "I'm still here," were carved. Open quote. "I thought I would die, but I just disappeared and the rain never stopped." Close quote. Thomas whispered. Open quote. "And now you're free." Close quote. Elias nodded slightly. Open quote. "Because of you. The door only opens when someone else agrees to hold it." Close quote. Thomas understood. The curse couldn't be broken, only passed on. The last keeper must choose to stay or to let go. He looked around the house. Everything began to distort. The walls cracked. The wood rotted. The lamp dimmed. Outside, there was no sound of rain anymore, only silence so thick it hurt to hear. Thomas sat down, placing his hand on the door. Open quote. "If I open it, will they be free?" Close quote. Elias didn't answer. Only a faint smile crossed his face before he dissolved into mist, like the last drop of rain in a century. Thomas took a deep breath. He understood. Everything would end when no one feared the door anymore. He stood, placing his hand on the latch. The door grew warm, then icy cold. A knock sounded, soft but clear. Knock, then another. Knock, and one last. Knock. Thomas opened the door. No storm, no spirits, only a calm morning, fog covering the fields and faint birdsong. He stepped outside, the first sunlight touching his face, tears falling without reason. Behind him, the door closed gently, no sound. Inside the house, the leather notebook lay open. The final line, written in strong, steady ink, read, "Open quote. When the rain stops, the door has been forgiven." Close quote. Years later, people found the house in the woods reduced to ruins. No body, only an old photograph, a man standing before the door, hand on the latch, eyes serene. Behind him, the sky was clear. But if one listens to recordings made there at night, amidst the wind and insects, sometimes 3 faint knocks can still be heard in the rain. Knock, 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 and then complete silence. This is Inspector Harris Cole, making my final report on the disappearance case in Glenwood Forest. I'm not sure if anyone will ever hear this. The signal is weak, the rain's heavy, and the rescue team's radio has gone dead. We found the house the witness mentioned, deep in the woods, about 2 kilometers from the main road. No signs of forced entry, but there was a leather notebook on the table. The first page had only one line, written in smudged ink. Open quote, "Do not open the door." Close quote. I thought it was some kind of joke, until we found the photograph in the bottom drawer. A man stood right in front of this very house, his hand on the latch. Behind him, the sky was bright, no rain, yet the photo was soaked. We wiped it again and again, but it never dried. The lab reported that the water on the photograph matched rainwater, except it contained traces of iron ions, as if it had once touched human blood. No one could explain it. Around 3 a.m., just as we were about to leave, I heard 3 knocks coming from the back door. Distinct, slow. Open quote, knock, 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 close quote. I thought someone on the team was messing around, but they were all standing 10 meters away. When I turned back, the door had closed. The wind stopped. The rain stopped. No sound at all, only the smell of wet earth and a strange chill right behind me. I called through the radio, no response, static only. When I turned toward the front door, I swear I saw a trail of water leading from the threshold straight into the middle of the room, vanishing beneath the table. On the table, the leather notebook had opened again, though I was certain I'd closed it. A new line had appeared, ink still wet. Open quote, "I'm still here." Close quote. I didn't stay any longer. As I stepped outside, I heard a whisper through the rain, faint, rough, like the voice of a man choking on breath. Open quote, "Don't let them in." Close quote. I ran. I didn't look back. When I reached the edge of the forest, my watch had stopped, exactly at 3:33. After that, all recording equipment failed. Only this file managed to survive, partially. If anyone finds this recording, don't go to Glenwood. If it's raining, don't enter the woods. And if you ever hear 3 knocks, knock, 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 don't answer.